As far as linebacker recruiting now, where do we think Michigan's kind of on pause for a little bit here? They've got a few guys they feel good about, obviously, with Mason Curtis, somebody who they think could play above his recruiting ranking as well. Could somebody come back in the fold in November, December, maybe? But is there anybody else really on the horizon now after losing Childs to Florida, now Beasley being in the fold?
Yeah, I think that pretty much, I mean, at least for now, that pretty much wraps things up. Childs would have been the nice, pretty bow on top of things, but, it is what it is, and he picked Florida. So, I mean, I can't, I can't speak to what the future holds. I mean, there may be someone that pops up. There may be someone that, decommits. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but, just a scenario that could happen. But, I think Michigan is likes what they have at linebacker right now. And I think they're set, at least heading into the season, to just stay where they are and kind of see what happens. And we've kind of mentioned this the last couple of podcasts. This program's in a bit of uncharted waters, really. I mean, they haven't had this kind of recruiting momentum this early. I mean, they usually do most of their work during the season, so now they're instead of like not necessarily scrambling to fill visit weekends during the season. Now they're in a position to where they can kind of wait and see and kind of wait how things are going to see how you address positions. And that's just not at linebacker. I mean, that's at multiple positions as well, but they can kind of address. Offensive line also, is kind of one of those positions too, depending on how a couple of decisions, fold out here moving forward. But again, I think they're perfectly fine going into the season with what they have and kind of seeing where they go from there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You think about a guy that got a lot of hype this spring. We talked about Jair Hill, right? Darius Clemens previously. There's been guys that come in December that they're big gets. They're some of Michigan's big gets. Will that happen again this cycle with them being so full? I think this is part of it too. Shadyville asks, is Curtis going to stay at linebacker and move to the edge? And I think part of why Michigan can kind of be like, aside from the numbers and the amount of players they have already, part of the reason they're comfortable with losing out on a guy or getting a guy is they've gone after a lot of versatility. Yeah. I've brought up Cole Sullivan as a guy I think will end up at edge. He absolutely could be the Mike linebacker in this class, right? Curtis is a guy I think, again, is going to go up the rankings, is absolutely looks like a Mike linebacker to me, but he could grow into an edge, right? There's guys at edge that could become defensive tackles. They're comfortable just with the football players they have and kind of letting it play out, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big part of it too. They're not like, oh no, we need this specific spot. We don't have that guy. They've really got this kind of, we'll figure it out attitude. And with what they've been doing in the transfer portal, if there is a gap a couple years from now, I think they feel comfortable that they'll be able to fill the gap with a guy like Ernest Hausman, right?
Yeah. So, I think with guys that are kind of like tweeners, like a Sullivan and a Curtis, it's kind of hard to predict. Like, it's hard to say with certainty that guys are like, okay, so this guy is a for sure linebacker or this guy is a for sure edge. I mean, you just don't really, especially with Harbaugh too, like, Curtis could be in practice one day and he could kick a football and Harbaugh would make him want to be a kicker or something. Like that's just what Harbaugh is. Yeah. So you don't really, it's really hard to like, not necessarily pigeonhole a guy, but it's hard to say for sure, like what position a guy's going to end up with, because like you mentioned, they do recruit a lot of guys with versatility. So yeah, a guy could very well stay where he's at, or, he could change positions 2 or 3 times before he's done.
Chase Winovich.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think Sullivan is like a Chase Winovich clone.
He is.
So it's hard to say. I mean, it's a legitimate question to ask, of course, but I think it's hard to really give a solid answer because, again, they recruit so many guys with this versatility, with this ability to, not just versatility in their play, but versatility in their body frame and body composition,
right?
Where Ben Herbert, can just do whatever he wants with them and turn them into monsters on the field. So, it's hard to give a specific straight answer, but it's a legitimate question to ask because, you just don't know how these guys' careers are going to fold out and where they end up.
Well, no, I mean, it's worth remembering too. I think we forget just because some of these dudes are grown ass men,
yeah.
right? But most of them are 16 and 17-year-old kids.
Yep.
right? So they still have to, we don't know what they're going to become, literally, right? I think about a guy who was pegged as a tweener during his recruitment, his first couple of years here at Michigan. Chris Jenkins is now 310 pounds, muscle, right? Like he's a big dude, and nobody thought he could play defensive tackle because they're like, he's never going to get bigger than 260, 270, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, all hail Ben Herbert.